know these words off by heart by soon. Then we've got a bit of an overview of the digital system and some videos about what it looks like and how it works. And then the sort of chunky bit, the core bit of tonight is the Compass Cleanse, so what we need everyone to be doing between now and Christmas 2023, along with next steps and the opportunity for questions and answers. So why are we transforming volunteering? So as you know, we have our Skills for Life strategy, which runs through to 2025, covering 6 programs of work. So people, program, perception, digital, early years, and equity, diversity and inclusion. And within that, the first 12 months is focusing on the volunteer experience as the volunteer experience program, and looking at how we bring new volunteers into the movement and how we look after our current volunteers. And within that, building around the change in the world and how volunteers want to give their time more flexibly. So ultimately, the view with everything we're doing here is we want to make volunteering with Scouts easier and more fun so that we can attract more volunteers and our current volunteers want to stay. And that's all with a view to achieving our North Star goal, which is around giving more young people skills for life. And I think, as we said on the trustee board webinar, we've got over 3,000 young people on waiting lists in Essex. So we've got a really good opportunity here to make a real difference. Now, in terms of specifically what is in that first 12 months, we've got 3 key areas of change. So providing a warmer welcome, so how we bring people into the movement, their induction, their welcome conversations, and how they go through the safer recruitment process. The second part is around delivering a more engaging learning experience. So moving from training to learning, looking at how we make that up to date, because the current system has been there for 20 years for the majority of it, and also bringing more of those practical softer skills into the branching out elements of that. And then finally, simplifying how we volunteer together, which is around our structures and titles and culture. And culture is the biggest bit in all of this in terms of how we interact with each other and how we look after our volunteers. And the fourth area, which is what we're focused on this evening, is the easy to use digital tools, and specifically preparing for that. So this is the first stage of that. There are others that will come later on during the year. But let's have a look at that new system before we delve into the Compass Cleanse detail. So I'm sure you all know by now, hopefully, that we do have a new membership system coming. Compass is disappearing. And for us in Essex, that will be switched off in February 2024 and will be replaced with the new membership system. So the key thing here is it will bring a whole bunch of new functionality together around welcome, membership and learning, which are key parts of that transformation journey. It will dramatically reduce the amount of administration, for example, things like automated reference checks, and be mobile friendly, which in this day and age should be a standard thing, and we'll bring ourselves up to date with that, all through a single sign-on through scouts.org.uk. Now, it's important probably here to reflect for a little bit. We've all had experiences of Compass and what it does, and understandably there may be some cynicism about the new system. We get that, but does Compass do everything we want it to? No, it doesn't, but it does do the basics, and we're now moving on from that and learning the lessons from that system. The key things we want to emphasize here is that the new system is being delivered by a brand new team of digital experts at headquarters, along with over 600 current scouting volunteers with proven suppliers, as you can see on screen. And that combination is really important to getting something that works for us and that is built iteratively. So it will continue to develop and build over time. And that key message I mentioned just a moment ago is that access will be via scouts.org.uk. So you'll see a lot of that as we try and point people to that website, and therefore the single sign-on to this system and other bits as they are developed over time. In terms of our aims, or the aims of the new system, we'll be moving towards that self-service approach, so to reduce the amount of times you have to ask someone else to do something on the system, or secure some key information you need to be able to do your volunteering. We'll be making the user interface more intuitive with sleek design and less clicks to get to the information you need, so there shouldn't be more than 1 or 2 clicks to find the things you need, other than things that sometimes now can be buried under layers and layers of menus. And as we said, it will be developed over time. So there'll be a set of key functionality on day one, and then it will be built from there. So it won't stay static. There will be the ability to request new features from our members. So if there are things that when it goes live, you think, actually, this would be really useful, or is that coming in February, then do feed that back to us because we can feed that into the process. So let's see the system in action. So this is, to start with, is the homepage. We're bringing a cohesive look and feel here to the system with Scout branding and intuitive design and layout with the tile format that you can see. And the dashboard is tailored to you. So everything you need to do is in one place. And building on that, one of the key things here is that on your profile page, you'll be able to update everything you need to. So at the moment, lots of those things you can't do. You have to go through the info center at headquarters. So if you want to change or amend your details, you can do that easily through the system. You can easily upload your picture and put everything about you in one place. And that's even down to things like diversity inclusion information, emergency contact details. We're going to be using the new system in a lot more ways than we do Compass. So there will be more relevance to keep it up to date and to make sure it's accessed regularly by pretty much all of our volunteers. And as we go through, there will be still a few things that need to be verified by HQ, but that will be things like name changes, I would imagine. So lots of it will be able to be done by yourself independently through the single sign-on. Further building on that, within the profile section, there will be the increased opportunity for volunteers to decide how and what information is shared, so that data protection and privacy aspect, so you'll be able to adjust your visibility within the member directory and make sure that what you're happy with for others to see is selected, so with much more breakdown of options within that compared to today. Which does link into this next bit. So we've talked about some of the basics, which you're probably thinking, okay, we can do a lot of that now. But as we go through, you'll start to see some of the newer functionality. So starting with the member directory, at the moment, it can be quite hard to find volunteers that you might need to get in touch for say, an assessment for a permit, that kind of thing. So the search functionality will be much improved, and you'll no longer need to know someone's membership number to find them. You'll be able to search by name, scout group, permit, etc., all within the bounds, obviously, of the permissions and visibility that each individual volunteer can choose to set for themselves. So now we start to really get into some of the what I call the cool detail, which is starting with my permits. So all your permit information will be in one place. So whether that's for camping, hiking, archery, etc., you can see all of those, their expiry dates and more. We have a short video playing on this next page, which starts to show what that might look like. So what's important to know here is that as that's playing, you'll be able to apply for a first permit or to renew a permit through the system. You'll be able to search for assessors. So sometimes it can be quite hard if you don't know anyone locally or haven't necessarily got good connections to know who can give you the learning you need or the permit approval assessment. So within that, you'll be able to find the right people to talk to. You can also then track the progress of your permit. At the moment, it's quite obscure, but you'll have clear updates and time-stamped updates. So it's completely transparent. You'll be able to see exactly where it is in the process. If it's stuck, you'll be able to say who it's sat with, so you'll then be able to contact them directly and further, obviously, chase and follow up if needs be. One of the issues we have now is that quite often permits come up to expire, or we forget that they have expired. So the new system will email permit holders ahead of time. So there's that prompt automatically there to get your paperwork in place to start talking to a relevant assessor for it to work. And from a manager's perspective, so if you've got any line managers on the call, then you will be able to see the permits that need approving. But all the background checks like DBS, learning, etc., will have been automatically checked by the system. So that will save you loads of time in having to look that up each individual volunteer. When that comes through to you for approval, you'll be able to see that those checks have automatically taken place. And you are then just reviewing the actual application and the recommendation of the assessor rather than having to do extra work. So that should save some admin time. And as a manager as well, you'll be able to see that information on your dashboard. You can have effectively a widget or a tile that shows you permits that need reviewing or approving or are due to be coming up for renewal. So you'll be able to see those easily at the click of a button. Again, with that, not having to search for the reminder, it will be there for you when you're regularly logging in to the new system. So the main things there, just as that's finishing off playing, is that this whole process will be slicker, easier, improved to what we have today, and should enable our volunteers to be able to access and secure permits and the training to go with them much easier than we have today. I'm going to move forward to the next section. Hopefully you've seen enough of the draft automated workflow there. Obviously the final version might look slightly different as it goes through testing, but it just gives you a flavour of how that system is going to work. So moving on to the next bit of core functionality is around My Awards. So this is adult awards. So all of those submissions and nominations for an award will go through the new system come February 2024. So sometimes it can be quite hard now to do that, to recommend someone or to find someone's details to be able to nominate them. So with this video you'll be seeing on screen, again, it's given a flavour of how that process will work. You can see going down to the My Awards tile on the front homepage, nominate someone, just clicking straight on that button, what type of award it's for, and then fill in all the necessary information. You can search and nominate anyone for an award. So again, this will help if you've been working with someone on, say, a large-scale event or something in a district, or maybe been to a jamboree, and you've had an experience with a volunteer who's gone over and above, or you feel deserves a nomination, you'll be able to do that much easier now. You won't have to try and find somebody in a district in anywhere town that you don't know or haven't necessarily got the contact details for. You'll be able to put people forward, as well as attaching all the relevant information into the system. So the citation, the explanation as to why you believe they should be nominated, and it will all be in one place. So there's no need for separate documents or emails. So hopefully that will help with making that process quicker and easier for people to make those nominations, as we know there are many, many volunteers out there that do an awful lot and deserve that nomination and hopefully the award itself as it goes through the process. And similarly, then moving forward to the other side of that is we have the viewing approve of award nominations. So as a manager, you'll then be able to see who's been put forward for an award. You'll be able to easily navigate your way to the nominations, as you can see on that homepage there, My Award Nominations. See the evidence and the citation that's been submitted by the person nominating, and you can add then further commentary in there to the citation as well before making your decision. And the benefit of obviously all of that being contained in one system and attached to the person's record is that it's automatically updated. The person who receives the award can also then see the citation that's been written about them, which is a really nice touch. That's not something that either is done very well or isn't easily seen. It has to be, there's a manual process involved there if it happens at all now. So that would be really nice, because actually we write some really lovely things about our volunteers, and that should be shared with them. So that will also be another added benefit here. So that's awards, and we've also covered permits. The third piece of functionality that will come with the new system is nights away notifications. So again, I think this is probably for me one of the best additions so far with day one functionality. So it's a really easy process. You click on My Request, choose Request the Nights Away, and off you go. Fill in all the information you usually would. So things like which adults are coming, their membership details, where you're going, the venue, in touch details, etc. And you attach your risk assessment and you submit it for approval. So then that goes automatically to the district lead volunteer or county lead volunteer, depending on the event. And at the same time, it also then sends a copy to the group lead volunteer for awareness automatically. So the moment we tick the box, and hopefully we copy those people in, but the system will do that automatically for us. So less admin, less emails, easy approval and navigation, all in one place. And with that, there will then be the other side of being able to, from a line manager perspective, see what's in the system, who's been away for what nights away, where, how often, that kind of thing. So we can then understand and help where further support might be needed. So that's a lot right just there. And that's all from day one that we know about so far. There may be more that comes as the year progresses. But it's not quite everything. There is some more stuff. We've talked about dashboards. There will be some pre-built dashboards there for all of us, whether we're section members or whether we are lead volunteers, where you can easily see the things that you need to do. So it could be permits coming to expire, nights away notifications and improving, your learning that might be soon coming out of date that you need to do, your appointments, your team members, all those kinds of things will be there from a click of a button. So there's no need then to generate huge, great big reports that we pull out of Compass at the moment, or Excel documents, and wading you through tons of data. It'll all be there at the click of a button and already set up for you to access the bits you need for your role. And within that, you can also then drill down into that detail, searching by various filters. Again, it's already set up for you, so you don't have to create that or re-engineer that yourself locally. So that should make the administration load a lot easier. And better still, you can also then create your own dashboards. So to suit local needs, because there might be specific things that are more of a focus for you at a certain time, or stuff that is more relevant to you in your district or your group that you want to see at the click of a button. So that will be a really useful feature, and it can also be shared. So for example, if one district built one, or one group built a dashboard, they can share that with other groups and districts, not the personal data in it, just be really clear, but the actual dashboard itself in terms of the way it's set up. If one person does it, we could then have a consistent approach that everyone uses across the board. But we have that flexibility, and it builds on those self-serve principles at the heart of the design. So that should make our lives easier as volunteers. And then finally, you can even create your own reports. So if you can't find what you need from the standard sets that will be in there, this should be something, again, that will avoid us needing to do huge data downloads and data manipulation outside the system, which will keep those GDPR concerns at bay and use the system to save time and have less hassle. And that, again, is all things that will be available, we believe, from day one in February 2024. But it doesn't stop there. A final tidy up in terms of the system itself. So we know after the initial system launch, the team are already starting to look at requested features with wide volunteer involvement in how we prioritize those and which ones are done first. So some known examples are things like training calendars, or will be learning calendars by that point, bookings for face-to-face courses, visit abroad approvals, and so forth. And there's also a need for us as a transformation team to be working with all of you to ensure that any current digital tools we have that we've built ourselves, understandably, to try and make life easier, dovetails with the new system when it goes live. So, for example, if there's a nights away notification process for a website, when this new system comes in February 24, that part of the website would have to be closed down, because this will be the only route for nights away notifications in the future. Things like that. And it might be through that work that we discover other things that volunteers are doing locally, have built themselves locally, that we can ask to be built into the system as it goes. And a key thing to build on that is that whilst we have a digital first, not a digital only approach, there will be a suite of digital skills training, digital champions, and any support that's needed to help as many of our volunteers through this process. And for those who are not as tech savvy as others, that there will be that support there to learn those new skills like we teach our young people. So with more exciting features on the way, hopefully this is demonstrated to everyone on the call or anyone watching afterwards how serious the team of HQ staff, 600 volunteers and key suppliers are about making this work for us. And it all underpins a lot of the other work around a warm welcome and training to learning. So lots more to watch out for there as we go along. So on to how we prepare for this. So the first stage of this is looking at how we clean up Compass, the data that we have within it. Any system is only as good as the data you put in. If you put rubbish data in, you'll get rubbish data out. So we need to make sure that, to the best of our ability, the data we have in Compass is up to date and correct, and as accurate as possible by this Christmas, so Christmas 2023, which does sound like a good chunk of time away, but actually there is a lot to do when you think we've got just over 7,500 volunteers, including occasional helpers, across Essex. So what does the big Compass cleanse entail? It will need action from all volunteers right across the board. For some, it will be a case of updating their details and making some choices within that, and we're going to talk a bit more about that as we go along. For others, it will also include following up and ensuring that these actions are taken locally and updating organisation records or closing inactive roles and so forth. Group Scout leaders, appointment secretaries, administrators and district commissioners, we believe, will be critical to ensuring the necessary actions take place, or to ask a volunteer within their teams to take it on their behalf, given that only 25% of volunteers nationally have ever logged on to Compass. So we do know that there's a challenge there for us to overcome together. But going forward, as we've seen tonight, all volunteers will have far more reasons and need to be regularly accessing the future system. So this isn't something we can ignore. We do need to make a difference here in the data set. So there's 7 areas you can see on screen for us to focus on, and we can begin work on those today. There's nothing stopping that from after tonight's webinar cracking on straight away. So we're going to go through each of these in some detail over the next few slides and the specifics involved. So the first thing for all volunteers to do is to review and make any changes to your personal information. So the fields of information shown are the ones that are critical to prepare for the switch to the new system. Whilst reviewing your record, if you have time, please also check the remainder of the information and make sure any changes are made. If there are aspects you cannot change yourself, so for example, you might have a role on there that's shown as live, but it might now be inactive, or there's missing training for validation, that kind of thing, please contact your local line manager in the first instance for help with that. So as you can see, there isn't a huge amount of fields of information on there, but they are really critical. And we're going to talk about emails and telephone numbers more specifically next. So at the moment, Compass enables a volunteer to have up to 3 email addresses, but the new system will offer only 2 email address spaces, each of which has a very specific purpose. So there'll be an email address for your username to enter the new system, and there'll also be an email address for communications. So we therefore need to make sure that the email addresses that need to be transitioned are clear, accurate and working on Compass. We don't want any bounce backs or non-deliverables. So within that, in terms of your login, your login username for the new system, the one that will be taken from Compass needs to be the one that is classified as volunteering in Compass. As you can see the little picture on the right hand side, there's a series of options you can choose in terms of classifying what that email address is. So the one that you want to use as your username for the new system needs to be marked as volunteering in the system, and it has to be personal and unique to you. So if at the moment your email address in Compass is something like GSL @ or Cub Team @, or for me, it might be the Hopkinses @hotmail.com, for example. Those can't be used in the future because technically they could be passed on or accessed by someone else, because your login to the new system is unique and personal only to you, because without that you risk other people being able to access your personal information, and potentially other people's if you have a role that means you've got access to other people's data sets. So there's something there for some of us to be working on in terms of making sure the email address in the system for our username and login is personal and unique to us. And similarly, in terms of communications, it might be that you want a separate email to be used for sending you communications as opposed to the one you use to log in to the new system. So if you wish to have a different email address for communications, then you need to mark it as scouting inquiries, and make sure with both of these that you don't have other email addresses marked as volunteering or scouting inquiries. So the outcome is you should only now have by Christmas in the system 2 email addresses maximum, 1 marked as volunteering and 1 as communicating. If you're happy to have all your communications go into 1 email address, you only need to have 1 in there and mark that 1 as volunteering. So that is email addresses. In terms of rationalising telephone numbers, we've got a similar thing here in that currently Compass enables you to have up to 3 phone numbers. In the future, the new system will only offer 2, a preferred number and an alternate number. So we strongly encourage you to check that your phone numbers are current and correct on Compass. We know these things change quite often, but maybe systems aren't updated. And you would need, if you have more than 1 on there, you need to choose which one is your preferred number going forward, and classify that one as scouting inquiries. And similarly, if you want a second one, an alternate, then mark that one as volunteering. And the reason why this is important is that without doing this work now, what we'll end up with when we switch over to the new system is a huge bundle of emails, calls, frustration, right when we really want to be focusing on making the full use and benefit of the new system, where people go, I can't get in there because my email address is wrong, or I've not been contacted or sent that because my telephone number is wrong. So it's in our interests to make sure that this is up to date and working, so that when we get there, that we can actually make use of the new system. So we will be helping with that in terms of some reports, but we'll come on to that as we go through. So those are the actions that everyone can take today. Anyone can log in and update their records in terms of their personal information, their email addresses and their telephone numbers. So moving on to the 4th area for updating, so volunteer roles and training. There's 2 main asks here. We need to ensure that anyone's roles on Compass are active, including if they've got the historic roles, that they're correct and accurate, albeit closed, and to make sure that all completed training is recorded and validated on the system. This is to make sure, again, that everything is pulled over properly into the new system. We know that when there was transition to Compass from the old system before that, there was a good chunk of information that wasn't transitioned correctly. Some of the information wasn't correct originally in terms of historic roles and that kind of thing. And then when our volunteers are logged into the system for the first time, this is wrong, that's wrong, this needs changing. And absolutely that should be correct. So we need to focus on that now. So we don't want to take over information that isn't correct. So if we've got inactive roles, we need to just have a tidy up, have a spring clean of the system and close those inactive roles, as well as just making sure anything historic is correct. So if there's particularly in certain areas or certain groups of volunteers we know that might be an issue, then please do focus on those. And on the next slide, we've got some specifics to draw out as part of this. So we've talked about inactive roles and closing those, including in active support members. Similarly, we know for a fact there are volunteers who sit on executive committees today, or trustee boards as they are imminently about to be known, but they don't have their trustee role recorded on Compass. So it's really important, particularly with the changes we have around trusteeship, that this is recorded properly and those volunteers have their training validated. We've put a list of the variations on the slide just to help with that. So whether someone is co-opted, elected, ex officio or nominated, we need to make sure that their role is on Compass, so it transfers properly. And that includes, for example, section leads who can put themselves forward at the AGM to take up their role on the trustee board. Those are ones that quite often get missed. We need to make sure that their executive committee member role is on Compass and the training completed. We've talked about training being validated and doing that by Christmas, and that will avoid any lost learning, because we know that is a concern and some of the questions we've had in already. And then the last part here we wanted to focus on is around section assistants or group section assistant roles. So in terms of preparing for the new system, when we're moving into team leaders and team members in sections, specifically for section assistants, we need to make sure that the right variants are on those. So we should no longer be using the group section assistant role. If someone has a group section assistant role today, we need to make sure that that is closed and then a section assistant role or roles is put on for each of the sections they work with, so that when that maps across, if they're a section assistant in Beavers, in the future they become a Beaver team member. It's a straightforward switch. If the group section assistant roles on there, that's not possible to do. So we need to make sure that those are split out. And obviously, if they've done all their training, that can just be revalidated. So don't let that become a flag on compliance. Do that at the same time. And similarly, if we've got section assistant roles on there, again, we just need to make sure the variations are on there, the relevant sections split out really clearly. So if someone is in Cubs and Scouts, they have a section assistant Cubs role and a section assistant Scout role on there, and any necessary training completed and validated. That will make sure that that maps across properly when we move to the new system. And we are intending to help with that by supplying a list of anyone with a current group section assistant role, just to try and make that process a little easier. Okay, moving on to the fifth item. We've got talking about occasional helpers, and now we have nearly 3,000 occasional helpers in Essex, which is exceptionally high. It's about 3 times higher than any other county, or the county average across the UK. Now we know that occasional helpers play a key role in helping us, and that won't change. And we also know that we keep lots of occasional helpers on the system just in case. Here, as we prepare for the new system, what we need to do is minimise the work as much as possible. So if we know that there are occasional helpers who are inactive on our systems, whether that be in groups, district or county, we need to be closing those inactive roles. If they come back in the future or are going to do some sort of form of regulated activity, they can always be re-added at a later date. But the example, I'm sure we've explained, if someone's coming on a camp, they're staying overnight, they've had their occasional helper and the role added and the DBS done, and then actually they've not done anything else in Scouting, but they've stayed on the system. We know that happens. We've seen that happen, we understand, but now's the time to have that spring clean. So if what we're asking for all line managers to do is to close all occasional helper roles except where there is a known need to keep them. So they are active, doing regulated activity, or you've got, for example, a camp coming up. If you've got a camp coming up this summer and they come and do that, but they're not actually planning to do anything beyond the camp in, say, July or August, then close the role after the camp. In doing that as well, what that will do, if you do that first, will reduce the admin exercise we've got to do on the first few slides we explained around updating personal details, email addresses, telephone numbers, because all of that's still got to be done for occasional helpers. So if we close down those inactive roles first, then that will save some work at the start. And the last point on there is around if you've got someone who has an occasional helper role on the system, but they already have another role that needs an active DBS, then let's close the OH role, because it shouldn't be needed, because they've already got a DBS through either a section assistant, assistant leader, or any other role that might be applicable. Okay, we're on to the last couple of sections before we move to some questions and some support and actions for you all. So updating organisation records. This is something that to date hasn't been necessarily focused on because it hasn't been relevant to us. But going forward, this is going to play a much bigger role in the new system. So what the ask is that any sections and ASU's organisation records are updated with all the information if possible, but at minimum, the ones shown on screen. This will help in the new system, but also now with the group finder system. If those details are in there, it will help with sending inquiries to the right places. So whether it be a young person joining an inquiry or an adult volunteer, it will come straight through to you. And we have tested this already with a few groups, and it is working, and it has then, after a few weeks, filtered into the group finder system, and people have been receiving those inquiries directly. So something there to look at in terms of how you organise that locally. But the main thing is we get these up to date. So in terms of this piece of work for group, at group level, district and county, so sections and ASUs is what we're asking to be done. But for group, district and county organisation records, we'll be making a plan to update those after the new system goes live in February 24. That's because that work at the moment has to go straight through the Scouts Info Centre. So we will create a plan to collect the information and then to do that through an online workflow later. But these ones can be done now, and they can be done by the roles shown on screen. And then finally, the last bit, there are a small number of sections that are marked as other. So they're not technically attached to a group, district or county. We need these to be corrected because they won't be transitioning over to the new membership system. We'll be receiving a list of these from headquarters directly. And if anyone's in this position, we'll reach out to you. So if you know you have a section listed as other, then please do talk to us. But if not, we'll be reaching out to you directly. Okay, quite a lot of information there. So what are the next steps and how are we going to help you with all of this? So from our side, the things we're going to provide, we've got a new web page that will go up on our transformation web pages on the Essex Scouts website. That should be published within a week or two after this webinar. Within that will be a series of how-to guides. So things like how to register the compass, how to update your personal details. So for anyone who is not sure or has never done it before, those guides will be there. You can download them, email them, send them the link to the web page, whatever's easiest for your teams. You'll know them best, so that they can self-help and do those updates themselves. And similarly, we'll have a recording of this webinar. So for anyone who's not been able to make it tonight, then you can re-watch and go through all the detail and listen to the Q&A afterwards. And finally, that set of slides that we've just been through with each of the 7 focus areas, we will put a copy of that on that web page too. So in your leaders meetings or district team meetings, you can use that to filter out the message and to share with volunteers to encourage them to take the necessary actions they need to. So to sum up and to focus ourselves in terms of the actions to start today. So everybody can go away and log in and update their information, look at the emails and phone numbers, and choose the right classifications they want and reduce those only to 2 of each maximum. And then obviously for line managers and administrators and others, there's a series of actions there around closing inactive roles, making sure training is validated, updating organisation records where it applies, and closing down those inactive occasional helper roles that are no longer required. So quite a lot there to do. Some practical things you can think of around how to do it. Obviously, finding someone in your teams or people to help with this would be a good idea. Try and share the load as much as possible. For section teams, this could be something perhaps if you had someone that's focused on this, say in a group, to pop down at the end of the section night, bring the laptop, sit there, do it together, and quickly make those updates if you've got the relevant permissions with your role. Or maybe it could be a brief call with volunteers to show them how to do it locally. There's a whole range of ways it could be done. Fit it around what you need to do. But I think the big thing to remember and take away from here, this is about making sure that when we transition, we bring over as accurate as possible quality data. That means our volunteers can access the new system from day one with the right information. So keep that in mind, because whilst now it might not directly impact what we do on a day-to-day basis, it will do come the new system. And what we want to do is to have as best and as smooth process then as possible, rather than being frustrated with not being able to access the system. And that brings us nicely onto our Q&A session. So Tilly, have we had many questions coming in, and where are we going to start?
We've got one question that's just come in, and it says, wouldn't it be helpful to ask OHs if they would like to take on an alternative adult member role rather than just delete them, or are we awash with volunteers and they don't matter?
Oh, they always matter, and that's a great question. So absolutely, if you've got someone that is active or you think could potentially be active, absolutely, we should be doing, regardless of the new system coming, we should be having those conversations, because it would always be great to bring someone in and move them on from what effectively a non-member role, which is what we believe OHs will be called in the future with the new structures, into a potentially uniform role, a team member in a section, maybe even running the section or something else. So there's always that opportunity to have that discussion. And you'll know best if you've got 20 occasional helpers, which ones out of those are likely to be receptive to that kind of conversation, absolutely have it, because there's so much more we could do, and that's what we want. We want to make volunteering with us as easy and as fun as possible, to bring on as many young people with skills for life.
Thanks, James. We don't have any other questions at the minute.
Really? Okay. I thought we'd have loads of questions. So, well, in which case, if there's no further ones that have come through, what we'll do is we'll bring the webinar to a close. Thank you all for taking the time to join us this evening. Hopefully it's been useful, and the information that we'll share afterwards will be tailorable and usable for you locally. And good luck with it all. And if you have any questions after the event, please don't hesitate to contact the transformation team via the Ask Us a Question webpage, and we will get back to you as soon as we can, because there is some quite technical detail there. But thank you again for everything that you do for Scouting in Essex, and hopefully we'll see you all again on our next webinar, which is on the 3rd Wednesday in May, which is looking at how we simplify how we volunteer together. Thank you very much, everybody. Take care and good night.